Hello, everyone. Welcome back to 3224. This is Terrence.
And this is Matt. So, we have someone else at the table today.
Uh-oh. Yes. We have a special
You can't
guest.
see it anymore.
I know. I wish we had more cameras and everything set up
Yeah,
here.
it's our first ever guest.
Yes.
So, you want to introduce him?
I would like to introduce him, and then, of course, he's going to introduce himself as well. But we have our first guest here on 3224, and he's a very special person for me, someone who has come alongside and helped me just walk through the journey of life, helped me as I was dealing with my own stuff, and the Lord just sent him in my life to help me understand myself, understand why I think the way I think, why I believe, and just asking good questions and helping me overcome some of those emotional bondages and just places where I found myself stuck in. And he came along and it's been very instrumental. And so I want to introduce our first guest at 3224, Doug A. Welcome, Doug.
Hey, great to be here. I'm glad that I have this opportunity. Yeah, it's a pleasure.
No, it is our pleasure. I'm glad you said yes. In fact, Matt and I have been talking about this. I mean, Matt and I talk every time, and then I said, well, usually I do the most talking, which Matt probably agrees with. But we were talking.
No one disagrees with that.
That is true. Yeah, everyone who knows me agrees with that. But no, we just thought about like it would be nice to have a guest who can come and share some wisdom and help us in different aspects of conversation, different perspectives and stuff like that. So as we dive into our topic today, Doug, why don't you just go ahead and tell us about yourself?
Yeah, well, it's where do you want to begin?
What do you do for living?
Yes.
Family, stuff like that.
Okay, yeah, wonderful. So my technical title is executive coach and consultant. I own a company called Executive Performance Group, and we deal with leadership. And in some ways, how we can get stuck in leadership, and how our brain operates, how we socially in certain social environments can get tripped up. But more importantly, what's going on the inside. And so without getting real technical, it's merging the psychological with the neurological. And then I like to say then the real dimension that matters the most is that spiritual side of our lives.
Right.
And so that's kind of in a technical way what I do. I work with a lot of companies and predominantly Chick-fil-A. So everyone loves Chick-fil-A. So there you go. I'm married. I've been married now for 42 years with my wife, and I have 3 children. I've got 11 grandchildren. So I just want you to know my family is doing their part in the world, to populate it. But it's a pleasure to be here. But that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Thank you, Doug. Well, as for our conversation today, we usually talk about anything and everything. Sometimes there's a lot of speculation about the weird things in the Bible. That's what we are here for. 32:24 is from Genesis 32:24, where Jacob wrestled with the angel of the Lord, which we believe is the pre-incarnate appearance of Christ. And so as he wrestled with the word incarnate, we wrestle with the written word and try to just bring good things out of it that can help us. So having said that, Doug, you have helped me tremendously when it comes to mental health, when it comes to just dealing with loneliness, because most of our audience doesn't know this. Maybe they know by my accent that I'm not really from here. Like I was born and raised in a Christian family back in India, moved to the States 15 years ago. And now I'm pastoring a church here. Matt and we are part of the same church. But as I left India, moved here, I struggled with loneliness in a big way, and it was just hard for me to make friends, hard for me to connect with people, hard for me to just assimilate in the society, in the culture that is around me. And I was just feeling like a fish out of water. And in that situation, I mean, you talk about all of that turmoil, and top of that, you got to lead a church while also struggling with infertility. I mean, it's just like things were just weighing on me so much so that I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do ministry, how to just deal with all these situations that I'm facing, not just outwardly, but also like within me, there is this turmoil. And what do I do with that? So having these conversations with you has really helped me to, I won't say overcome completely, but it has helped me to at least take those steps towards healing. And because it has helped me, I thought I want to pass this on to folks who are out there, and they can also probably glean some benefits from our conversation tonight. And so since I've struggled with loneliness, and I thought your perspective on community and the whole idea of the church is so unique, it is so different. It shouldn't be different and unique because that is a biblical view. And at the same time, we find that we have so kind of wandered away, at least in the Western church, from some of the basic views of the church, of what the church should be about. It's about fellowship of the believers. Yes, it is about the word of God and prayer and all of that. I'm not denying any of that. But the early church was more known for its fellowship and its love and its communal aspect. And I think that's what I was missing for a long time. Though I was here and was part of a church, and now I'm leading a church. But that deep friendship that I think God wants us to develop with one another, that aspect of one another that we find in the New Testament. And so I want to start with this question. And the question is, with all the technology we have, with all the resources we have, why do you think we are so lonely as living just in this Western world? But also, like, I go to India and I see people, and there are hundreds and millions of people around, and I still have met people who are like, I feel very lonely. So what is it about loneliness that has, and it has been for a long time, sure, but in recent years, it seems like there is an epidemic of loneliness. So why is that?
Well, that's a pretty broad question, but let's just begin with the reality that we are hardwired for relationship. Our whole being, when you look at who we are, internally, how our brains are wired, how our constitution in and of itself gravitates towards connection pieces, you realize that what's really important is for us to make connections. Mm-hmm. And connections aren't something that just can be established by, getting on Facebook and seeing what people are doing. Right. Connections are about deep and meaningful or abiding relationships that we can have with one another. Mm-hmm. And so just like you talked, is that we can be, and you are every Sunday, surrounded by a multitude of people, and yet I can be alone.
Yeah.
And it has to do with what is real connection and what is real relationship. What is authenticity? Where can I go that I can be safe to be vulnerable enough? And so we build walls that, keep us from being our truest self. We struggle with the ability to be present with other people, even though we're around them.
Yeah.
So at its base nature, we're wired for it. And it takes a real understanding of that. And when you think about the church by its core, when you think about it at its core being, is when you look at the Godhead, it's relationship, it's connection. When you think of those who are the called out ones, this concept of the church as ecclesia, it is this understanding that we're not called out to be separate, we're called out to be together. And so I think in many ways we struggle in that area.
I think it's interesting too. You look at churches today that we would consider to be successful are large churches, just full of people, and you walk in and you can walk in and walk out and no one knows whether you're new there, you're not new there. And a lot of people seek that out because they can still go to church and they're like, oh, I'm still going to church. I feel good about myself because I went to church and I had, a great motivational message. But that's not the church that God calls us to be. We're a very small church. I mean, if 40 people show up on Sunday, we're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
But I think we're doing church better than a lot of the large churches, because at the same time, if something happens in the church, everybody rallies around that. People know each other. We're doing life together. I really think that that's what the church body should look like. And I think, devices and social connections and being able to do church online and all that kind of stuff has really driven a wedge in that what Christ really set the church out to be and what it has become today.
Yeah, it's there are many things when you're talking, because for me, when you look at a larger church, it's not really the size. In some larger churches, I can go and I can truly connect with God in worship, or that a resonant chord will strike something in my heart to where that it fills a need. And so connection can happen, I believe, on a lot of different planes. So that's why, worship is a vital and part, our ability to articulate to God our love, and yet to experience Him, to feel Him, to make a connection with Him, to me, becomes a component part of that.
Right.
Because it's big or small, I can still go. And just because I'm around people, I won't get it. I won't get that. I feel like there are parts of us that, in our relational connection with God, that touch our emotions that are important, as well as, Terrence, you talk about our time together. It's me really attuning to you. It's me for the first time hearing what you're saying beyond what you're saying. It's me providing a place where you can say it and not be judged, where you can be vulnerable and it not be weak. And so when we foster that kind of relationship where we can be our truest selves, flawed and imperfect, and yet be accepted, oh man, that's right to me at the very core of what Jesus did when he was around him that made him so different than everybody else. And so this structure and facade sometimes keeps us from the very thing we long for and are all searching to find. And that's why I think in many ways we find that sometimes in worship. And when I use that term, I'm talking about I can get in a service and the music kind of resonates inside of me and I make a connection with God, even though I'm not making connection with others.
Right.
There is something that is striking a chord at my very being. And I think God longs for us to have that with one another. I think what Jesus was talking about, when I come that you might have life and have it in its fullness. And then he describes that I and the Father are one, and his desire is that we would be one like he is with the Father. Well, that tells us that there is a plateau or a plane that is far different than what we experience.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, my hope would be for the church to begin to explore and discover that.
Yeah.
And I think the early church in some ways attempted that, didn't they? That it wasn't in the institutional, it was in the relational. And Jesus did that around the fire with his disciples. He poured into them, and then they didn't have to be perfect, and he sent them.
Right.
I mean, and then they could come back. And I imagine in much like we have sometimes in business settings, what did you discover about yourself? What did you learn about going out? What did you discover about needing, the person to your right in going out in pairs? And so everything, when you look at it, God's desire that we should not be alone, and yet we can be alone. Even in a marriage, we could be alone.
Right.
God's desire that we would be like the Father is with the Son, the Son is with the Father, and with the Spirit. And then the church is a microcosm of what that really should be if it was the real community of the church.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as you guys both were talking about attending either a small or large church, and you go and you feel a certain way, you feel God's presence, you feel the word of God is right there, it's speaking to me, this is amazing. Well, all that is amazing, and I hear you, but at the same time, I feel like then the church becomes about me and how I feel, and not so much about the person sitting next to me, the person sitting, in front of me. And so if I'm going there just to feel a certain way or just get fed, and I'm not against any of that. I mean, God gave us feelings. God wants us to get fed in a church, and all of that is true. But
Terrence, when do you not feel?
When do I not feel God's presence?
No, when do you not feel?
When do I not feel?
Do you feel anything while you're here?
No. Well,
so let me reframe that in a way. There is never a time in which we are not feeling. Is there a switch that, now I'm in logic mode? Oh, that's it. Now I don't feel. I separate feelings from.
But we're not always focused on our feelings. Is that what you're saying? Like, we're not
saying that
conscious of it.
So if you're talking in narcissistic ways, it's all about us. Well, that would be one thing. But we are constantly 360 days out of the year, every moment of every day, feeling. Our body is wired through a network that is sensing even below our conscious awareness. In milliseconds, our body can move into fight or flight to escape danger. It's sensing. It's like a tuning fork around our whole being that is trying to sense and feel and connect. And so, should the church be the place where I could go and be my real self, even if that meant I came through the doors and I want to feel, or I want someone to connect with my feelings, or even sometimes if I want to be seen. And so now, is there a context for that? I believe there is, but it isn't suppressing feelings. It isn't eradicating feelings. It isn't, in many ways, invalidating that I shouldn't have those.
Right.
It's understanding that God designed us with all of those. I mean, why on earth would Jesus weep? He shouldn't even have tear ducts. I mean, let's think about it. He's the Son of God, God of very God.
Those are the man of suffering.
He in a way took on humanity with emotions, with feelings, and those feelings are good. Those feelings are authentic. They're real. And I think sometimes, through our theological frames, we try to suppress those. If we have faith, we can't have feelings, all of these things. And yet there is never a moment when you're not feeling or when emotions are not present. So how do I learn to be okay with those emotions, the good and the bad of those emotions? Because I don't live in a perfect state, and I'm never going to be that. So how do I reconcile that those two can be side by side, and I'm still accepted, and I'm still loved, and I'm still cared for?
Yeah.
I think that's where the community of believers comes in, is where we can do life together and go, I'm messed up, right? Like, I've grown up in a Christian household, and I'm messed up.
So how safe do you feel? How safe do you feel it is sometimes to be that in church?
Wow, that's a great question.
See, I don't care what other people think of me, so I can answer that question one way, and Terrence will answer that question another way. But I think that's where, I really think in our church context now, where we're very focused on that relationship with God, and not so focused on the relationship with the person to my left and my right as I'm there.
Right.
And going through those emotions together and having people that are they think differently than you. They're going to respond differently than you. But can come alongside of you and go, I may not know what you're going through or how you're feeling, but I'm here for you.
Yeah.
Like, this is all okay. Like you said, Jesus wept. So, you know, emotions are fine. Jesus flipped tables in the temple, anger, you know, all of this stuff were emotions that Jesus felt. None of that separates us from him.
Correct.
It's how do we go through that together and not let the enemy win, that this isn't normal. You're on an island. No one else feels this way.
Right.
And how do we do life together? Like, I think there's absolutely that piece of resonating with God, spending time with God, all of that.
Yeah.
But I think God calls us to be a community of believers as well, so that just like, you know, this conversation was born out of, is we just get together and talk about God and how we're feeling. And you have that person that you can just call because, you know, I know to call him when it's 12 degrees outside and snowing because he needs to get out for coffee and because he needs that. And, you know, it's just having those people to go through that with. I think we miss that. I think we miss that a lot in Western culture. We don't share feelings with each other. And I think we miss that a lot in Western church because we've become so seeker sensitive, and we're really good at inviting people into our doors, but really bad at progressing them along in Christianity and making them better versions of themselves than when they walked in, and making the body a better version of itself because that person walked in. You know,
I think this goes all the way back to the whole Genesis account where Adam's hiding and God comes in, where are you? And Adam's hiding because he's ashamed. And I think this is exactly why we don't let the real personality come out, because we are ashamed. There is this shame, this deep-seated shame within us, and that has to do with our sinful nature. That has to do with, depends on the person, right? We all have our own history, and I think all that plays part into it. And so, yeah, I don't know. I just thought about when you were talking, like why we struggle to be authentic, why we struggle to be real. And that's true for me being a pastor. Like I sometimes, like I have to be this person that everyone expects me to be. And I have seen people left the church because I was not as they wanted me to be. And I mean, it kind of hurt me because I like to be liked. I like to be accepted. And then sometimes people walk away and you take the blame on yourself. As a pastor, I think a lot of pastors struggle with that. When people come and stay, they feel like they're doing a pretty good job preaching, and, you know, and when they leave, they feel like they messed up. And that may not be always true. That may be true in some cases for sure. But I have struggled with this for some time. But like, I don't like to be liked, but at the same time, I like to be liked. Because I want to be part of this community. I want to be part of this relationship.
Accepted. We want to be a part of. We want, yeah. You know, I think that in many ways, when we think about our theology, that there are times where we elevate certain things over other things, and so righteousness. How you live your life. In other words, we can very easily get caught in the frame of establishing our own laws to how we as Christians need to be.
Yeah.
And so anybody that is trying to protect that, and remember, our body is a protection mechanism. It's always searching for safety. And when it can't have that, it'll learn to conform in order to kind of get along. And that's where we start projecting things about ourselves that we're really not. And so we then frame how church should be, and this is what we should do. This is how you should live your life. And yet we miss other frameworks of Scripture that tell us there's not one that's righteous. And then it double emphasizes that reality. And so where is the real in it? And if we cannot be that, and the church is not a safe place for that, do you think we're ever going to be that? And the answer is no. And so what will we gravitate towards? We will gravitate towards what we call our relationship with God.
Right.
Because he accepts me and he loves me unconditionally. And I can bring my things to him, and he's got big enough shoulders to carry it. And so what we say is, all I need is God.
Yeah.
Now think about
So
that.
true.
So
Wow.
do we need each other? Does he push us towards each other? Does he talk about all the things you're to be with one another and bear one another and
Yeah.
and yet
Yeah.
why would you even emphasize it? If all I need is God,
Yeah.
then why do I even need the church? I don't need the
I can
church.
just go and live on a mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're wired to need each other. Community becomes a vehicle, authentic community becomes a vehicle whereby we can, in the truest sense, be like the Father.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, well, then what is that? What is that for those of us that are fallen, those of us that live in this world of sin and who have not yet experienced this tension between the already and the not yet? What is that for us? How is that to be? And I think that's where then, in its truest sense, we have to come back to this place of what is authentic connection. And I say that because even in business frames, psychological safety is critical to organizations. When you don't have psychological safety, then teams get fragmented. Individuals begin to foster their own pursuits. They'll hoard information. They won't share other information. And what that does is it creates a disunity in that team. And so all this energy is moving in one direction or in another direction. And so what do you have to do in that? You have to create a place where I can be safe.
Yeah.
And that's where I can maybe not agree with something, but I can step into that disagreement. Not like, I don't agree with you, Matt, but I can step into that agreement. Would you mind, because I just kind of see that from a different perspective. Can I share that perspective? There's so many models, like in business. 6 Thinking Hats is designed to mitigate bias and designed to kind of look at things that perhaps are, maybe that we would prepare to be wrong in. But what is needed in those teams is all harmony and connection. In the church, it's hard to achieve that when I have to project a standard, but yet inwardly I know I'm not living there, but I came because I really want to get help. And the only help I get are, you need to do this and you need to take care of that. And you need to in other words, you need to go do what you couldn't do before, what only Jesus could do for you or aid you in it. And by the way, you got to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. So my feeling is, and this is just my perspective, and is this term oikotomene in the Greek is this understanding of oneness. And oneness can be where I can come together and someone will accept me even in my brokenness.
Yeah.
And I have to think that that's what was so different about Jesus. Like the image I get of this woman who, had the issue of blood. Socially, it was totally not accepted. Religiously, it was an abomination. Ritually, he would have to go all this cleaning after, she touched him and all of this. Right. And yet it is a beautiful picture of God accepting someone right where they're at and being okay with that.
Yeah.
He didn't rebuke her.
Yeah.
He didn't say, wait a minute, did you wash your hands before you touched my garment? There was none of that. And yet she received something, and he didn't say, listen, I'm going to shut the dunamis, level off here and the spigot, and you're not going to get this power. No. And so I think that that's kind of what the church needs to be with one another, is that we can come and in our uncleanness, and we can be there. And that's a starting point for our connection.
Wow, you said that's a starting point. I thought that's the end goal. Like, that's what I'm thinking. Like, how do we get there?
Yeah, it feels that way, doesn't it? Because it feels like a big difference from here to there. But I think that I find that in my field, and I work with churches as well, is getting there doesn't become that hard when they taste of a moment like that's real. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, it takes one person to say, well, can I be honest with you? I'm really struggling here.
Mm.
And then we offer them containment. Containment is where they might go off. They might even say a curse word, which is, immediately in the church, that's like, oh, my ears, hold on a minute. Where in reality, those are the emotions they're truly feeling.
Yeah.
Yep.
I feel alone. I feel separate. I feel isolated. And I feel like this whole world is kicking me in the blank. And I feel like there's nowhere I can go, because even when I go there, you can't think that way, brother. You got to have faith in God. I want you to know, read this scripture, because that's somehow going to unlock it to you. And what they want is just a place to be able to say, has anyone struggled like that? And what are they looking for? They're looking for someone. Can someone identify with what I'm going through? Well, 9 chances out of 10, there's probably 8 or 10 people that all can identify. Now, are they going to risk that social acceptance enough to be authentic?
Mm-hmm.
And it only takes one voice that says, you know what, John, I experienced that. Let me tell you a time I walked through that was so dark, I wasn't sure. I didn't even want to live any longer. I was alone, and I was surrounded by 1 million people. And yet I can't tell you how alone I felt. That is like a snowball that for the first time, and no one said, well, brother, you know, where they could be real. And then you'll watch the group. They'll look around at each other. Is it okay to be real like this? And if you're the pastor, they want to look at you as like, this is okay. And if the pastor goes, John, I thank you. Thank you for stepping into that with us, for being real. And so now that begins in the church to become a contagion, from the standpoint that when you've tasted of it and you've experienced it, and you could be you for the first time, well, then the transformation begins.
Yeah.
In the psychological world, we have things that happen to us in life. We call them core emotional learnings, because they're fused with huge amounts of emotion, energy. That's why I say we can't shut that off. We have it. At a young age, we can't process all that. At a young age, it's seared into who we are, even at a subconscious level. And so when we go through life, those emotions can't be resolved through logic. If they were, just think different. They can't. And our role in that field is to allow those emotions to get into the room, because the only way they can be surgically kind of dealt with is when those emotions become here, out in the surface. And yet the reason I don't bring them out in the surface is I'm not sure I can handle my own emotions, let alone I'm not sure how other people will see me, because if other people go, oh gosh, that's disgusting, that level of rejection puts me so back into isolation, I lock my world up. Community becomes a place where, for the first time, they can put those out on the table. I could talk about what they went through that week, but they could get what they need from one another. What would you need from me, Terrence? And Terrence might say, I just need acceptance. I need to know that I share that with you and you guys are still okay with me. And imagine when the group says, you know what? I can't tell you how brave that was. And that bravery of stepping out and actually saying that, and I've been afraid to say that, almost spurs me to feel like I can be brave too. And so that's why I say what happens then is transformation begins. Because I leave there feeling like, wow, that moment was so powerful that they could share and be accepted, and yet we could ask for what we needed from one another. And just like loving beings, we could be a support to them. well, what am I thinking about the whole week? I'm thinking about that moment in time that started a transformational experience for me. And so if the church could awaken to what was Jesus really saying when he was talking about oneness, this concept of being one, and why does he emphasize that? Why is it in the framework of the Trinity? Why is it in the framework of the church? Why, we're looking at it through a one-dimensional lane when it's a four-dimensional concept. It's a dimension that's beyond us. But it's one that we can begin to experience that. And we do that with our emotions intact as well.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
If there's somebody listening that's like, I want that in my church, what is your advice for getting that snowball rolling? And how do you take those first steps? How do you foster those first steps? Is there anything tangible or any resources that help prepare people for that, church leaders, or even just someone in the congregation that's like, that sounds cool and I'm going to do that at my church?
Well, it's hard,
That's why we brought you to the table.
Well, I wish I could say that it would be solved as quickly as just start somewhere and step into it. But again, the dynamics of church sometimes are structures and leadership, and sometimes our thinking that that's not what our church is about. You see some churches venturing into that in what I think they call them transformational communities or others. You're seeing the church awaken to some elements that are taking off, that are actually doing that are looking at not only our design, neurologically and brain-based and other things, just how we were created, and, stepping into moments like that in small groups. But if I was talking to somebody about where we begin, is that they have a home, and in that home, they can call people together and say, hey, I would really love the opportunity to get together on a frequent basis. And I would really love for us to just talk about what going through life is like, and begin there and learn to perhaps try to be authentic. Now, I'm saying that as a starting point. What would the framework be? The first framework would be learning to be present.
Right.
And if I was dealing with a leader, that's what I begin with, is a lot of the impairments are learning to be present. The second would be learning, how can I convey the good? The third would be looking at reality, negative or otherwise. And the fourth would be, what would action that moves me forward look like? And so, is there a lot to unpack in there? Yeah, there is.
I was going to say that.
But I would say that to somebody that really has a deep desire, there are very few matrix or models out there for us.
Right.
And so in many ways, it's learning to kind of step into that. The legitimate term, if you look it up, is confessional communities, I think is the term that some churches are actually moving to, where there's a framework of a model that's designed to foster that in a local church. But again, if you can find one where the pastor is open to that kind of it and is willing to step into it, even when it's not perfect and it's not sanitized, and that, it's one you're going to learn in the process, I think that's where the beginning thing is. If a pastor can really engage that, I think it's important.
So a church let's say a church who's willing to take those steps and provide that place. My question is, how do we encourage people to open up? Because I'm thinking about how we have this Facebook version of ourselves that we present to the world, whether it's on Facebook or in real life. We have this filtered view of our, not a view, but like we present ourselves as if like everything's good, everything is great. especially in church, and I think that's often because people are afraid of being judged, that, Christians tend to judge a lot. Just my opinion. So how do we encourage people to say, okay, we don't just believe that the Bible tells us that we are all really messed up. Like, we really, really believe that. And we want you to be okay with your messed upness. Like, we want all of us to be okay with our brokenness. We all want us to, because we want to own it. Like Paul says, the good I want to do, I don't do it. The evil that I don't want to do, I keep doing. Paul's willing to acknowledge that even after I am saved, which I believe he's talking about his experience after being saved, which is, some people don't agree with that. But anyway, like, how do we get to that point where Paul the apostle is willing to acknowledge that he's still struggling? Not that he's attained, he says, but I'm moving towards that. And yet we somehow have subscribed to this idea that yes, I'm a sinner. That is theoretically correct. But really, I don't want others to see that in me. If they see me, they won't like me. And if they don't like me, and so we feel lonely because I'm thinking out loud again, not to interject here, but like, this is where I think a lot of people feel lonely, because their real version of themselves is not accepted. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah. So let's go back to the garden. Sin enters, and what does Adam and Eve do?
They hide.
They hide. And so there is a part of us that naturally feels shame. And so shame is fostering this sense that I cannot be real. Now, Jesus comes along, he knows everything about us, and yet he goes to the homes of those who should be full of shame. And we're not told what's happening behind the scenes there. We don't get all the whole story, but we can kind of imagine that it was a disruption.
Yeah, big time.
He's just sitting down. And if there was ever a moment where I could ask him something, because nobody's ever sat at my table like you, I'm going to, hey, by the way, and why do they come out transformed? Why is a tax collector willing to say, I'll give back, I'll even do what the law says above and beyond, and repay everybody recompense for what I did? Well, it's because for the first time, someone could sit with him in that shame. Now, did Jesus leave him there? No. It's not saying that we just got to accept it and talk about how bad we are, and that's what we're getting around doing. But there is no pathway to healing and wholeness without first being real with where we're at. In fact, there's no salvation until we acknowledge.
Right.
If I don't think I need that, hey, if I'm perfect, I project that, I don't need any of that. There's nothing even the greatest executive coach could do. There's nothing that anybody could do. And so dealing in reality is where is just a place. Now, that's when I can get in that setting and just be me. Now, am I telling him, let's just say somebody is way off the deep end. I want to begin to share that I'm struggling. I want to begin to share that, hey, here's where I'm going. And what I'm doing is testing the waters. Is it safe enough? And so getting back is that no different than in the fall, we hide. And we hide even from God. We hide from the love that he has given us, and we hide from one another. And it's learning to not hide anymore. So what I'm not saying is, that we just got to accept our sinfulness. Well, we got to accept that, yeah, we're sinful beings.
Right, right.
Well, yeah. But that doesn't give us permission to live like we have a liberty to kind of live in that and still be okay, because we acknowledge, no, it becomes a gateway and a pathway that allows me to move on to health and wholeness. And truthfully, Terrence, the same principle is in business. If I've got somebody that's struggling with something, let's just say they're afraid to use their voice. And so what they do is they tend to people please. They tend to just allow others to, hey, I want everyone to be okay and go along to get along. And I can't hold people accountable, and I can't step into difficult conversation because it's just regulating. Well, my first place is to start on the inside of them to say, so help me understand that. Why is that difficult? Why does that? Well, it's just, I learned. Where did you first experience that you could remember in your life? Well, I remember. And if I process with them, all of a sudden you can start to see where the root of that kind of emerged. And if I can allow them to process that, I want to move them to a core relational experience. Now, this is a psychodynamic term, but it's kind of what happens when we're in relationship. I want them to experience them putting themselves in a situation that would be hard and difficult for them. You think, well, we don't want to do that. We want them to be comfortable. No. And then I want them to experience what was it like after that? Were your fears as big as they had gotten? Did it come out the way you thought it would? No, I thought they were going to all not like me and be mad at me. And then, so what was that like? Well, kind of, it was like, it's a little liberating. It didn't really go that way. And I say that must have felt really good. Well, come to think of it, it does. And I imagine you have a sense now that, man, I wonder what other things I've been keeping. I'm wondering, man, why have I kept that hidden under a bushel for so long? And just why was I afraid to let that kind of out? So what would it be like if you could step into something like that again? Can you have another situation? So what am I doing? I'm trying to fortify internally those pieces that had either collapsed or didn't feel good enough, or they became small. And what I'm doing in that moment is getting them to think on those things which are good and pure and lovely and honest and of good report, that were connected to them. And so you can begin to see what happens is internally they, for the first time, have this core emotional learning that they don't have to be like they were. Can that work in the context of community? Yes. It's not leaving me where I'm at, but imagine when I have a group of people that are in support for me, I'm taking them in with me when I'm facing that again. You say, are they physically there? No. But in spirit, in a sense of connection with them, imagine to say, hey, I know today was going to be really hard. And I know you were kind of afraid to step in, but man, I just want you to know I'm holding you in my thoughts today. I'm holding you in my prayers today. I want you to go when you're in there. I want you to see me right alongside. In fact, I'll be behind the guy that you're looking to address, and I'll be smiling at you. Will that strengthen me? Yeah. So, hopefully we didn't get off there because it's easy to do. But my point is beginning starts with vulnerability and authenticity. It starts with somebody. If I was working with the church, because you kind of alluded that, and I thought I'd always begin at the top. When I think about churches, our boards don't even know how to be in community with one another. And so imagine elders come together. They think their core job is to disseminate information. As if you, the pastor, can't fully really disseminate because you don't disseminate like us. Why do we disseminate better? Well, we own businesses or we're over something. And so we think that our knower is better than someone else's knower, and that's all we really need. So is all we really need just someone that can make good decisions and choices? Well, where is the spiritual component to what that really is to be? Does waiting on tables mean they just pick up things and do things? What did it really mean? Is waiting on tables touching and connecting and sitting with and hearing and offering containment and being able to just be present with you. Is waiting on tables, sometimes pouring in courage, because that's what encouragement is. It's pouring courage into someone. What do they need? They don't need me telling. They just need me sitting right next to them. So again, I get passionate about this because if we could be that, man, then when I come together, that worship is rich. And worship is powerful. I don't look around and see a bunch of losers. I look around and see my brothers and sisters who were real with me. Right. And I feel like now I can. Because imagine when we're projecting that we're all good, what do I feel about myself when I walk through the door? I feel shame because I know I'm not good.
Yeah.
And what do I need to feel? I need to feel them accepting me and still loving me right where I'm at. Yeah. Jesus did that every moment he walked the face of he accepted them right where they're at.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
No, that's...
Hopefully I didn't blow the podcast up, but...
We'll find out.
No, hopefully you did.
Hopefully you did. That's right. No, great. No, we started our conversation with the question of loneliness, and I think there are many facets to that. There are many components to that, and we talked about church and leadership and all of that. But I think the core message that our audience can take tonight is authenticity in relationship. That you can, if you don't have 10 friends, find one friend that you can sit with and have that open and honest conversation. The whole time I'm thinking about me growing up. I have had friends, and the reason why they are still my friends is because they know all the stupid things I have ever said and ever done. Every single cuss word that I have said and every single nasty thought I have thought about. Women, they just know that because I would tell them, and they were not that I'm proud of it, but I'm saying like they were with me in that without judging me. And I think we can flip the coin on the other side and say, if we as followers of Christ start doing the same without approving the bad, the nasty, but at the same time loving the person where he or she may be without pointing finger or, I often say in my messages, like, I don't like to point fingers. I like to stretch out my hand. That's what Jesus does. Yeah. And that's what we are called to do. So just last couple thoughts, if you have anything that you just want our audience to take home, and then we'll wrap it up unless Matt has anything.
I have one thought, but we'll end with that. So
all right.
Yeah, I think that if anything, maybe from sitting and listening to us talk about this is don't live in isolation.
Yeah.
You need a life group, a group of people that you can connect with, that can see you warts and all. And so search for that. You may have a friend, or you have somebody, you had mentioned a friend, it doesn't have to be in the church, but you can call them at a drop of a hat and say, hey, I'm struggling. And, or, hey, I could really use some encouragement. You need that. To me, that is a life group is what we all need. And in that, I have to learn to have the ability to ask for what I need. So that means I've got to leave that place of trying to live under this, this projection reel.
Yeah.
But somehow I'm the projector and having to, tell a story that isn't me. And so if you can do that, that's, I think, a really good place to begin. But you cannot do it alone. The only time loneliness, when we withdraw, is either because there's shame, or we have learned to insulate and we struggle with attachment. We were designed to make connection. So don't live in that. Yeah. Push through that, and you'll see a whole new level of health that comes as a result of it. Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. So I think the illustration you used of the woman who touches Jesus' cloak is a pretty good illustration of what we're talking about here, where if you're at that point and you feel like you're lonely and you're dealing with stuff, she was just at that place where she had nothing else to lose, right? I mean, like, she's just going to go and do it, and see what happens. Cause how much worse could it be? So she was willing to be vulnerable, but at the same time, seeing all these stories in the Bible about how Jesus interacted with people, I have to think that she had some level of assurance. Like, she had a belief that was going to be okay. So I think, like, as we sit here as church leaders, that's the persona that we need to give to people walking through the doors of our churches, is like, it's okay to be vulnerable and just reach out for that help as that last straw. Like, I just need somebody to talk to. I need help with this. I can't do this on my own.
That's right.
And as we were talking about at the beginning, it's that bring them to Jesus, but we do that as a body, we do that as a community, we do life together, whether it's life groups or you're just intentional about, let me take somebody out to lunch or dinner, or, is there another family in my church that I can get to know better over a meal? And, those are the huge things that I think we can do as a church to really move that forward, is just, be that safe spot and figuring out what it looks like to embody that safe spot.
Yeah, it's a great way of putting it, Matt. You said something that just sparked a thought in me, is, we don't have to be Jesus for someone to want to reach out and touch our garment. You ever notice that there are some people that are just so that you can bring anything to them, and they're caring, and they'll listen before saying anything. They will just be there with you. There's like a natural attraction to people like that. So imagine if you could just be that. Be someone to whom someone is drawn to you because you've made it safe. You were caring. You listened.
Yeah.
Man, that's the biggest thing. That you really just could listen in a tune.
I think it's listening is more than trying to solve the problem. Like, we don't know how to solve the problem, but just to sit there and be quiet and let someone else speak and get it off their chest is 90% of what you need to do.
Right.
Well, there's in business, we call it the advice monster, because leaders will tend to feel like, someone asks a question, they get excited, because finally their advice monster feels real good now. And they feel they can disseminate the information.
I just feel the same way when it comes to theology.
Right.
I know that.
And yet when you look at all brain-based research, what happens when you start just telling people? Well, they shut down. And so learning what's known as attunement, sitting with somebody, the difference between empathy and sympathy, all of a sudden changes the whole dynamic, because for the first time then they start pouring things out merely because you were willing to sit and listen with them.
So if I'm not hearing this, or if I'm hearing this correctly, we are talking about the importance of face-to-face, one-on-one conversations, not just social's good. I'm not against that. Virtual is fine, but like, there's nothing as good as sitting with the person in the same room and having that conversation. At least for me, I think that is the most attractive part of conversation to me. Is like, I want to sit with you, not just listen to you virtually and then leave the meeting. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I want to be there and be present.
Can I step into that?
Yeah.
Because I don't know what the time frame is here, but
that's fine.
But
we've been going for an hour.
Have we really? I don't know. That can happen.
It's fine.
I used to feel that way the greatest way for us is one-on-one. And I think there is something dynamically when we're in that space that I can see more than just one aspect. I can see your body. I can see what's happening. I can see whether you're tense or not. I can see your leg moving or not moving. Not that it's moving.
It was.
Was it? Okay. But COVID changed it.
Yeah.
Because we were forced in COVID not to be able to have connection. Now, when you look at the research and the data, what happened to us when we couldn't have connection? So you talk about the maladies that people are experiencing because of loss of connection. Well, that underscores why loneliness is counter to our very being and existence. Okay. But that's another note for another podcast. Okay. But,
There'll be another podcast with Doug, just saying.
so we were forced, especially in my field, and even in the psychodynamic field, because they couldn't come into an office and have therapy. So now therapy had to happen through a screen, through Zooms or other things. And what they learned in that is you would have thought, oh, there's a big difference in how the brain connects and fires. And what they learned is, no, that's not the case. The connection could still happen through a Zoom meeting. That you could still therapeutically get somebody to a heightened spot and still heighten the emotion, even though they're watching you through the screen. And this is, again, has to do with mirror neurons and other things that happen in us. And it made us realize that, oh, it's not just happy, that connection can happen in many different ways. And it can happen even sometimes audibly. That audibly you can hear the emotion of the other person when they're connecting with you. And so, again, this is the amazing beauty of God's design for us, that I say we're wired for it. We can sense it and connect with it. And it can come through a number of different mediums and vehicles. It can happen sometimes in music. Why does music unlock? Like I can hear a song, and now it's 1968.
That's right.
I'm driving in a VW with my mom. I'm in the back, and the wind's blowing through my hair. Back when I had it. I mean, because it unlocks that core memory. It locks a moment.
What happened today? Yeah.
And think about it. Again, God's design is that it triggers an emotion. God gave us these emotions. They're not accidents. They're not byproducts of the fall. No, we were designed with it. And so we were created with that. And he wants us to feel it, not deny it, not invalidate it, but he wants us to feel it in the truest sense. I can feel grief, sadness, hurt. I can feel pain that's not even physical.
Yeah.
Why is it that the brain can feel pain with a limb that's no longer there, and they can feel the pain of that? It's just extraordinary. It's because God gave us all of those emotions, not to deny, but to experience in the fullness and have a place to regulate that with others. And other people are the ones that help us regulate those emotions. Community helps us regulate those emotions. How can I face a hardship when I've been with the community and someone just comes and touches me and says, brother?
Yeah. It's a whole world of difference. Absolutely.
And so imagine if the church could be more than just a Sunday morning, but could be, life.
Yeah.
And, or it can happen even not in a church. It could happen, like you were mentioning, just with friends and with other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, I better stop there because we'll go to the second hour. Yeah.
Matt, I love you.
I'm not going to follow that up.
You're not going to follow that up. All right. Peace.
We will see you on the next one.